G'day, Dancer Dave, Riverstone, king of shit hill. And have I got a story for you? You know, one thing that's always confused me about the First Fleet is why they chose Sydney Cove and the pissy little tank stream when they knew Pittwater was another 40 minutes sailing up the coast. Had they gone down Pittwater, they would have gone down the Hawkesbury, they would have eventually found Windsor, but more importantly, they would have found this, South Creek. Instead of, South Creek, a stream and inlet runs for numerous miles inland, a constant source of fresh water. But not only that, they would have found it runs next to a floodplain. Thank you, God. An already ready-made pasture with plenty of highland for the stock to run up to when it did flood. But here's the thing, I genuinely believe that's what the first colonists in the east coast of Australia did. They came down to Windsor, they discovered South Creek, and they first settled right here in Riverstone. Except here's the one thing, I don't think it was the British, I think it was the Dutch. Oh yeah? Well, where's your evidence? Where's your proof? Well, for the last 3 weeks I've been taking photos around Riverstone, Windsor, Richmond and Penrith of what I believe is supporting evidence of my argument. And that's what's about to follow. Please enjoy. If you don't, you can always change the channel. And let's get started by ripping off Casey and Jojo. That's the Tartarian Troopers, not the Nubian one-hit wonders. Well, that's a Nubian. Shut the fuck up. This is from their very first episode, A Brief History of Australia, Part 1, link below, and definitely worth the watch. It's also what got me scratching my head. A windmill that size, where Sydney Observatory now stands, in 1805 in a country that used to be called New Holland. Okay. So here it is. I'll leave this picture up while you let it sink in. It is the year 1660. New York is known as New Amsterdam. Australia is known as New Holland. And New Zealand is known as New Zealand. After an island off Denmark called Zealand. Notice a pattern here? Amsterdam is also the site of the world's first stock exchange, so it looks like the Dutch are really kicking ass. What could go wrong? Well, this shitty little island off the coast of France achieved naval supremacy, i.e. became the Star Destroyers of the sea, and knew that the Dutch couldn't go anywhere without going past them, and figured they'd just take what they want, and that's exactly what they did, starting with New Amsterdam. Anyway, fast forward 110 years, British colonists in America have decided they'd rather be Americans, and so they kick the British out, which is an absolute disaster on many levels, but most of all, if there's one thing the Brits fear more than cold beer, it's a revolt in the lower classes, and they need somewhere to send the convicts, and they've lost America. So what do? They put the heavy on the Dutch again and say, we're taking New Holland and New Zealand, and you're going to let us or you won't have access to anything. It's that simple. Now, although the windmill got me scratching my head, it didn't convert me. It wasn't until I was walking down High Street in Penrith that I saw this shop and I thought, hang on, what's going on there? And just as I'm thinking the only thing missing was a loading door where the window was, I see this. Followed by this building with the slanted window frames and the very old clay-baked bricks at the bottom of it. But the thing that really captured my attention was the chimneys. Now, I'm not pretending to be an expert on Dutch chimneys, Dutch ovens, yes, but hey, what bloke isn't? The one thing I'm absolutely positive of, though, this is not British. What do we got here? So I looked at the other chimney, and that was even more intriguing. This is Penrith, mind you. We shouldn't be finding anything that's really out of the ordinary here. Okay, we're beyond scratching our heads now. This is starting to get weird. Okay, and even weirder when I take a closer look at the bricks. This becomes a recurring feature in Riverstone and Windsor. I'll touch base on it there. And that pretty much would have been the end of it until I saw this driving up Castlereagh Street in Riverstone. Out the corner of my eye, holy crap. Yeah. Alrighty, on to the next pic. This is the front of the house, very historic. Notice the posts. Yeah, this is actually, I mean, you say to anyone in Riverstone, you know, the house with the posts, every one of them knows what they're talking about. And once again, no Australian would ever look at something like this and think, oh yeah, that's more than 200 years old, because we've been brainwashed since the age of 8 or 9 to know that's impossible. And every 26th of January, we reinforce the message. Right, these are the oldest bricks in Australia. There's a building up the road that's reportedly the oldest in Riverstone, but I'm pretty sure they're on par. The reason I say they're the oldest bricks in Australia is because you wouldn't build anything anywhere until you had farming and grazing land, which they first found here. Prior to that, the only construction in the country prior to that would have been at ports, and they would have been fortresses made out of stone. So yeah, these are definitely among the first bricks in the country. It should be noted this is a Bond brick design which was used by both the English and the Dutch in the 18th century, so there's a point for the disbelievers. However, I'm leaning towards the Dutch, obviously, because, there's also evidence of Flemish brick design here in Riverstone, Windsor and Richmond, but more on that in the next video. But the key word there is Flemish, trust me. Right, this is reportedly the oldest place in Riverstone, and I mean, there is old, and then there is ancient. I mean, look at those bricks. I mean, you know, they've restored it, but yet they've used the exact same bricks. I mean, if you saw brickwork like that anywhere in Europe, you'd have no trouble believing it was 400 years old. But once again, we've had it drummed into us since the age of 8 or 9 that that's impossible. And what the mind can't accept, the eye often doesn't see. That's a fact. Oh, and here's some more evidence. Ever notice how the oldest churches in Australia look Dutch? Yeah, there's a reason for that. The same reason they have the Bond brick design. Just thought I'd point it out. And here's a view from the back as well. Coincidence? I think not. Oh, and the other thing, I'm pretty sure there was a brick on this building somewhere that would have had the date on it, and that would have been carefully removed and not smashed on the spot. Macquarie would have wanted to see that, and it would have been in the garden centre when it went up in flames in 1882. But hey, you know, that's just a theory. Ancient. Bloody ancient. And once again, look at the bricks. Look at the bricks. Now just look at this majestic erection. Alright, not the best description for a church, but built in 1820 under the watchful eye of Macquarie. It was built by, yes, you guessed it, convicts. Because how else would you get such a perfect finish unless you were using convicts? I mean, forget Brunelleschi. Forget the Renaissance. Forget the Medici family to pay the best builders in Europe. Who needs that when you've got convicts? Convicts! I mean, that was built by convicts. Would have looked pretty ordinary with the wooden shutters, though, because according to the history we've been taught, this was before glass had arrived in Australia. Pretty big windows, considering they got no glass. But hey, each to their own. Ditto and convicts, convicts, convicts. And now's as good a time as any to remind everyone that there's only two things historians agree on. And they are, the word history comes from the words his story, and history is written by the winners, i.e. the person that gets conquered and wiped out does not get to record what happened prior to that. The person that wipes them out and conquers their country gets to record what happened. Do you get it? Alright, good. Right, in case no one's noticed yet, when I'm not barring up over bricks, I've got a hard on for chimneys. Oh, look at these ones. It's pretty gay, I know, just look at them, but oh, look at them. It is a classic example of what the mind doesn't comprehend, the eye just doesn't see. I mean, how many times have people looked at this, noticed it, and given it no thought at all whatsoever and kept walking? And it's the exact same as the down the other end as well. I've seen this exact same style and design in Maori lodges in New Zealand that it supposedly predated the British. I'll tack them on at the end. Kamate, kara, kara, kamate, kara, yeah. Now this one I like. If you're looking at brickwork like this anywhere in Europe, you'd have absolutely no trouble believing it was over 400 years old. But, you know, I'm harping on, but you're getting the point, aren't you? Oh, this one's absolutely beautiful. Weathercock and all. It's got a weathercock and a nice firm wooden block and tackle arm. Same building, different angle. Oh, and while I'm thinking of it, I'd like to thank the glorified regurgitator who not only told me a new one, but felt a need to shove it in my face that the Dutch only ever looked into Western Australia, never found anything and left. He then accused me of jumping on an internet bandwagon based around a theory for Dutch words popping up in Koori tribes back in Western Australia, God knows when. So, how silly do you look right now? Oh, and thanks for steering me towards WA. I think I may have found conclusive evidence there. And yet another stupidly old church looking like it was built by the Dutch. Too easy. This is Australia's first Masonic temple, dated 1861. Yeah, right. Now Blake's music tuition. Well, at least one Blake knows what he's on about. And this is King Neptune carved into a cliff face on the waterfront in Balmain, by whom no one knows, when no one knows. How this fits into anything, I've no idea. I just thought I'd show everyone this photo I took recently, because another 3 months from now it's going to be reclaimed by nature and hopefully forgotten by the local council. Don't need the archaeologists getting in the way of new mariners. And welcome to Richmond. If I lived in Richmond, yiddle diddle 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 diddle. Now here's an 18th century Dutch manor that would spread anyone's legs. Hell, that'd even get me on my knees. Jesus, beautiful. Moving right along. Same building as before, just look at the balcony. Look at the balcony. I'll come back to that. One more example from Richmond. One more from Windsor. And now let's cross to Western Australia for what I promised you. But first, let's pay tribute to those convicts once again. Now, we've had a medieval style, an Elizabethan style, a Victorian style, a Greco-Roman style, but we've never had a conviction style because these guys weren't limited to one thing. They could build anything in any style. And once again, if you want that perfect finish, you can't go past convicts. Now, it was while I was admiring just the outright beauty of Fremantle that I got hit in the face with two epiphanies. So let's just recreate the moment. My God, look how beautiful that is. That's what George Street, Sydney would have looked like before all the renovations, refurbishments, expansions, remodelling, yada, yada, yada. I mean, the original walls and foundations are still in there somewhere along those streets in Sydney, but yeah, they've really ruined what was absolutely beautiful. But here we have a perfectly preserved timepiece. Let's enjoy it. That's what I was thinking. Just taking it in, absolutely beautiful. Yeah. And then we got to the intersection. First I looked at this building, absolutely beautiful. Kapow! Kapow! It was like I was hit in the face with a cold mullet twice in a row. Yep, both epiphanies. The first one, although the stone blocks that were used for the walls and foundations of all these buildings were cut locally, all the fancy bits and pieces that give them their style, their character and their look were precast overseas, transported to Australia and then put on as a finishing touch. Yeah, and they would have been precast in the Netherlands, shipped down to the Cape, and from the Cape distributed to Perth, Port Adelaide, Sydney, Windsor, and New Zealand. So we haven't got a scattering of colonies here. We've actually got a Southern Empire in the making. No wonder the British wanted to ruin the party. And the second epiphany, get ready for it. Where does Lego come from? Denmark. Where's Legoland? Amsterdam. Lego is a scaled-down version of how the Dutch used to build their cities. The main blocks first and then the fancy bits on last. And I know they just didn't throw facades onto structures that were already there. I know they built the foundations and walls beyond all doubt. How do I know this? Because every street looks like it's made out of Lego. It fits together like Lego perfectly. And just for bonus points, how do you make a Dutch building look like an English building? You add a cast iron balcony, some sort of awning, and convert a few windows into doors. And that's pretty much it. Oh, and then you rewrite history, of course. And here we are back in Riverstone, outside Riverstone Public School. And the date reads 1928. But you notice it doesn't say built 1928. It's basically a red herring. The school might have opened in 1928. But I know for one thing for sure, the New South Wales Government and Education Department didn't give a rat's crap about Riverstone back then. And a few wooden buildings is the most they could have hoped for. But having said that, look what's across the road. The Masonic Lodge. What you'd expect to see across the road from a building like that. How surprising. So yeah, in conclusion, the British achieved naval supremacy, as I said earlier, took what they wanted. Those that could got on ships and left Australia and New Zealand. The ones that were left behind is probably best not to think about. Their last stand would have been Vinegar Hill or the uprising in Vinegar Hill in 1814, the very first convict uprising in Australia, although where convicts got a shitload of rifles from in 1814 is beyond me. Yeah, and after the uprising in Rouse Hill and then the final battle in Castle Hill, Macquarie had wiped most of them out, and he marched victoriously into Windsor the same way Alexander did into Babylon, except without the fanfare, of course. And then the first thing he did, before putting his name on everything, is change all the street names in the CBD, Parramatta and Riverstone. Oh yeah, and if anyone thinks this is pretty far-fetched, just replace the words Dutch community with Koori tribe and no one will bat an eyelid. Well, here we are, finished the tour. A little tribute to Joseph Lycett in the car park at the Australian Hotel at McGrath's Hill. For those that don't know, Joseph Lycett was a convict artist who got busted for forging bank script back in Britain, was transported out to Australia where he became Lachlan Macquarie's convict artist. And when he was done with, when Macquarie was done with him, he circumnavigated Australia with Matthew Flinders, painting the landscapes, and then those paintings were taken back to Europe, where they toured to promote the name Australia. Yeah, get rid of the name New Holland, promote the name Australia, and here are all the paintings to show it was nothing but bush. But just a little story about Joseph Lycett. My great-grand-uncle told me, my grandfather's uncle, when he was 82 and I was 6 years old, and yes, he had a couple of scotches under the belt, and it's Joseph Lycett. Yeah, he painted what he was told to. If he saw something that wasn't meant to be there, he either left it out or painted trees. And don't you bloody repeat that. What? That's it? Yeah, that's it. I'm David Lycett. Thank you for watching, and to take you away is a tribute to Casey and Jojo. Peace out. I pray with someone like you, and I thank God that I finally found